Hi, I'm John from Just Whiskey. If you like today's show, please give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And consider becoming a Patreon with the link in the description below. And thanks so much for the Patreons that I do have that help support this channel. Much appreciated. And as a Patreon, you receive exclusive Patreon reviews. And remember, folks, it's Just Whiskey. And today's show is Just Whiskey. Whiskey 101 for beginners with a Baker's 10 top 10 of beginners scotches that I recommend. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to lift a little gag from Jeff from G Whiskey. If you stick around to the end, I have a mystery pour in this glass. I will tell you what it is if you stick around to the end. And if you stick around to the end, I have 3 or 4 books, whiskey related books, that I would recommend to anybody that's interested in Scotch. So if you stick around to the end, I'll quickly go through those. And if you're just starting your whiskey journey or contemplating starting your whiskey journey, you need a proper whiskey glass. And I would recommend, which most people use, is the Glencairn glass. Okay, you can find these on Amazon or directly from Glencairn's website. They're not cheap, but they're rugged little items and worth the investment. Okay, Whiskey 101. Before we get into what I'm going to recommend, just a quick understanding of what a single malt is versus a blend. Okay, so a single malt is a single malt made from a single distillery in a pot still. So they're made in batches, okay, as opposed to blended Scotch whiskey that doesn't have the word malt in it. This blended Scotch whiskey usually has a percentage, sometimes a high percentage of grain. That grain can be some 100% malted barley, but it's usually a cheaper grain like wheat or corn or something like that. And a column still, a continuous running column still, mass production, is what they make most grain from, and then they incorporate that into a blend. So a single malt is 100% malted barley from a single distillery using pot still distillation. Okay, just as an example, Johnny Walker is one of the most popular brands in the world, but with the exception of their 15-year-old and some of their new blue labels, but most of Johnny Walker's offerings are 40% ABV, chill filtered, coloring added, mass produced, and overly marketed. And although it seems a reasonable price, you're not really getting value for money, in my opinion. So what I'm going to recommend are mostly single malts, some blends, and we're going to go through them expeditiously. And most of these are under, in my area, in Northeast United States, most of these are under $60. Some of them are under $30. Okay, and just to get some of the honorable mentions out of the way, and we're going to slowly start clearing the deck here. Glencairn 10. Okay, I'm not going to recommend this only because in my area it's almost impossible to find. Okay, but worldwide, Glencairn 10 would be a good beginner's Scotch whiskey. Also, too, Arran 10. Okay, it's not readily available in most areas around me, but Arran 10 would be a runner-up. And then for blends, okay, so this is a much talked about now, McLean's Nose. It's very hard to find, but it's $30, and it's 70% single malt, 30% grain. Okay, so it's a blended Scotch, not a malt blend, which we're going to get to that in a minute. And I know all this can be confusing if you're just starting out. All right. In no particular order, if you've never had Scotch before and you just want to try something, monkey shoulder. Okay, you can find this well under $30, possibly even in the in the mid $20, $25, $27. It's non-age dated. Okay, it's 43% ABV, so there has been some chill filtering, potentially some coloring added to this. But if you just want to find out like what Scotch whiskey has to offer, monkey shoulder would be something I would say you could start off with for $27. You can't go wrong. And this is a blended malt, so everything that's in here are blended single malts. Okay, as opposed to just a Scotch blend that has some grain in it. So there's no grain. This is 100% malted barley, but it's a blend of many Speyside single malts. Okay, so for the price, you can't go wrong. Second thing I'm going to recommend, and these are really in no particular order, but I'm kind of going by lowest price. Glenmorangie 10-year-old. In the United States, it's 43% ABV, alcohol by volume. In the UK and many other markets, it's 40%. Okay, but at 43%, you can find this anywhere, everywhere. The 10-year-old, I highly recommend it. When I bought this bottle, I think I paid like $32 for it. It's gone up since then. It's probably close to the $40, but very enjoyable. Glenmorangie single malt for a beginner or anybody. I really enjoy it. Also, too, Loch Lomond 12-year-old. Okay, what's interesting about this now you're stepping up. It's a single malt. It's 46% ABV, non-chill filtered, no coloring added. And I bought this one 2 years ago for like $32. I think for under $40 you can find a version of Loch Lomond 12-year-old. It's fruity, sweet, and offers some complexities. So again, if you don't want to break the bank and you want to buy a single malt, 46% Loch Lomond 12-year-old, highly recommend it. Also too, Highland Park 12-year-old. In the United States, you can find this is at 43%. I think again in the UK and overseas, it might be 40%. But Highland Park 12 is a single malt that has a little bit of sherry cask and bourbon, so you're getting a hint of smoke, even though it's non-peated. Everything so far I've talked about is non-peated. But for a beginner, Highland Park 12, I recommend it. Very, very nice. And then to Old Pulteney 12-year-old. Now it's a single malt ex-bourbon. It's 40% ABV, but it's somewhat readily available, and it's a cool bottle. And when you pour it, it makes a nice little chugging sound out of it. Comes in heavy duty packaging. So Old Pulteney 12-year-old, for a beginner, I would recommend that. Just to you're not going to break the bank. You're going to find it for under $50, maybe closer to $40 range, maybe even in the 30s if you're lucky. All right, we are going to talk about peated as well. And you're going to say, John, peated whiskeys for a beginner? Yes, and I'll tell you why. All right. Also, too, now, if you want to, now we're stepping up to the 46% ABV, non-chill filtered, no coloring added, for the most part. Okay. So we have Compass Box is a massive high-end blending company, independent bottlers. And so this Compass box is blended malt, so they're all single malts in this, and they call it Orchard House. You can find this most places for a reasonable price, around $50-ish, maybe closer to, but around 50-ish, maybe even a little bit less. And it's a fruity, a bit spirity, so it's non-age dated, but I would recommend this as well for a beginner. Then we get into a Kleinleach 14-year-old, again, non-peated, 46%, 14-year-old age statement, light, fruity, complex. I voted this as Whiskey of my Year 3 years ago. I can find this still for $50 in my area. The highest I've seen it is $70, but $50 to $60 for a 14-year-old single malt. I think it would be great for a beginner and anybody else. These are all things that I enjoy all the time. Brook Laddie, classic Laddie, eye-catching can. This comes in at 50% ABV, and this is something I would recommend to beginners as well as experience. If you really want to experience what malted barley is, this is a good example of that, and it's readily available for around $60, maybe a little bit less if you're lucky. And then Craig Alecky 13-year-old. This might not be for beginners, but a 13-year-old Speyside. This is a bit ballsy, a bit meatier. Have a Glenmorangie 10-year-old first before you buy a bottle of this. But if you've got a couple of these other things under your belt, Craig Alecky 13-year-old. Again, I can find this in my area for $50, $50 to $60, but I can find it $50 for a 13-year-old single malt, non-chill filtered, no coloring added. I voted this Whiskey of the Year a couple of years ago. This is a fantastic, ballsy, meaty, complex, unpeated whiskey from Speyside. And then over here, this is great. Bunnahabhain 12, 46.3% ABV, 12 years, single malt, unchill filtered, no added color. It has like the Highland Park 12. It has some sherry and bourbon, and a hint of smoke, even though it is unpeated. For the price, now this has gone up a little bit. This might be closer to $70 now. But if you're looking for, in my opinion, right, in the Bunnahabhain 12, you're going to find it everywhere. But if I could only have two whiskeys unpeated off the top of my head for quality, with a little bit of yin and yang. These are different, very different, but very enjoyable, that offer different levels of complexity. But yeah, Bunnahabhain 12, great all-rounder, offers a little bit of everything in there. Okay, now we're going to get onto the peated section. Talisker 10 is not heavily peated, although as a beginner it might just blow your mind. You can find this everywhere, still for $50. It is starting to creep up in price, $50 to $60, but still readily available for $50. Talisker 10, made in the Isle of Skye. This has a little bit of maritime, a little bit of peat, mostly ex-bourbon, possibly a hint of sherry in there, but it's mostly ex-bourbon. I voted this as Whiskey of the Year a year ago. Okay, I really enjoy Talisker, but beware, it's got some oomph and some balls to it. Okay, this is 45.8% ABV. probably is chill filtered a little bit, and there's probably very likely added color to this, but still, Talisker 10 is a unique offering. There's really nothing quite like it. Yeah. All right. Now, Lafroig 10-year-old in the United States, this is the cast strength, okay? I don't recommend the cast strength to a beginner. But I don't have a bottle of Lafroig 10-year-old, just the core range 10-year-old at 43%. Again, in the UK, in Europe, it's 40%. But over here in the United States, the Lafroig 10-year-old at 43% ABV is what really got me into Scotch whiskey, believe it or not. I was blown away by it at the, it's heavily peated, heavily medicinal, iodine, Band-Aids, but it also offers a lot of rich complexities in there. And Lafroig is notorious for either you love it, like it, or hate it, or don't like it. But don't get the cast strength as a beginner. But Lafroig 10-year-old, if you want to experience a unique, heavily peated offering, I would recommend it, because it just blew my mind when I first tried it, and it was an explosion of flavors, and that was the catalyst of me starting my Scotch whiskey journey. Okay, and then two other peated ones that you're going to find readily available that if you just, you're not spending a lot of money on these to experience a heavily peated Scotch. Lagavulin 8-year-old. It's 48% ABV. I don't think it's chill filtered. I don't think it's colored, although it doesn't state that on here. These are still readily available for $50. So it's a damn nice heavily peated Islay Scotch. Again, take it with a caveat when I say, beginner, because it's heavily peated, but it has, for the money, it's worth the experience if you really want to try to get into these things. And then, last but not least, Ardbeg 10-year-old. Again, readily available. It's around $60. Non-chill filtered, no coloring added, 46% ABV. Another Islay offering. And this one has more like rubber tires, heavily peated kind of experience. Rubber tires meets peaches and pineapples, kind of a thing. So there's my baker's 10 of beginners and experienced recommendations that I think most people should or already have tried. All right. We're almost going to expose the mystery pour, but as I alluded to the beginning of the video, this book here is a pretty good book. It's by Nicholas Morgan. Everything you needed to know about whiskey, but were afraid to ask. Okay, I would recommend that. Also, too, the Malt Whiskey Handbook. Okay, this is the latest edition, 2024. It comes out every year in October, and it's under $20. It's like $15 or $18. You can find this on Amazon or go directly to the website itself. This has every single Scotch distillery with many great articles, and the new distilleries as well, up-and-coming distilleries with statistics and lots of great information. It's a great handbook. Highly recommend that. And then too, as a refresher course, if you just want to start out too, this is a decent book as well. The Complete Whiskey Course by Robin Robinson. This probably could have been called Whiskey 101 for beginners as well. A lot of information here about what I talked about is column stills versus pot stills versus blended, single malts, how whiskey's made. And then, last but not least, this is an older book, but any book by Dave Broom he's an excellent writer, very knowledgeable person. This one's called The World Atlas of Whiskey. This came out quite a while ago, but you can still find it on Amazon and other websites, eBay. He's written many books, but this is a worthwhile book to get as well. All right, that kind of ends our show. The mystery pour was Glenmorangie 10-year-old. I really like their profile, even at 43%. Yes, I wish it was 46%, non-chill filtered and all that jazz, but for the price, for a beginner, this would probably be my number one recommendation, only because it's so easy to find and it's so reasonably priced. And I know overseas it's 40%, but if you just want to taste what a single malt Scotch is, non-peated, has a little bit of fruit and offers some complexities, Glenmorangie, yeah, that's what's in my glass right here. All right. If you like today's show, please give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and consider becoming a Patreon with the link in the description below. Remember, folks, it's just whiskey. So hats off to you all, and take care, folks.